Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tui mulieribus.
In the quiet stillness of a small chapel on a hill in Italy, a man sat in deep contemplation. Padre Pio, a monk whose connection to the divine was so great, often experienced visions that were so clear, so vivid, that they felt like windows into the future. What if you found out that this man, revered by millions, saw something so disturbing about the year 2025 that it could shake the very foundation of humanity? What if Padre Pio's predictions weren't just fantastical dreams, but visions of events that would change everything we know about our world? Stick around as we reveal these predictions. The prophecies of Padre Pio. Padre Pio's most disturbing prediction is one that has sent chills down the spines of many, and it is called the 3 days of darkness. Can you imagine a world where for 3 entire days there is no light? This darkness isn't just physical, it's spiritual. Padre Pio envisioned a time when the entire world would experience an all-encompassing, terrifying darkness. The kind of darkness that isn't just a blackout, but a darkness that is thick, oppressive, and suffocating. A darkness so intense that it feels as though it's closing in on you, pressing down on you from every angle. For 3 days, the sun would disappear, and the world would fall into complete obscurity. The light from the sun, the moon, and even the stars would vanish. The world would be plunged into a night that would never end, without the comforting glow of the sun. What happened next will shock you. Padre Pio wasn't just talking about a physical absence of light. This darkness would carry an ominous spiritual weight. The evil in the world would rise, and only those with deep faith would survive the trials of this terrifying event. He said that the only light that would remain would come from blessed candles, pure beeswax candles, which would allow the faithful to survive the 3 days. Anyone without these candles would be left in the total darkness, at the mercy of the forces that were unleashed. It sounds apocalyptic, doesn't it? It's as if the earth itself would undergo a purification. But why? What would bring about such a catastrophic event? And more importantly, how would humanity respond? After the 3 days of darkness, Padre Pio predicted that the world would be forever changed. It would not be the same place as before. It would be a time of unimaginable tribulation. He saw a world where natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, and fires would become commonplace. The earth itself would seem to rebel against humanity, shaking off the bonds of civilization with terrifying power. Cities would be swallowed by the earth, and entire regions would be consumed by rising seas and unstoppable fires. It wasn't just the earth that would turn against us. Padre Pio saw political and social turmoil unlike anything humanity had ever faced. What Padre Pio predicted is often called a period of purification, a moment in history when humanity would face the consequences of its actions. But it wouldn't just be natural disasters or the collapse of society that people would struggle with. This would be a time of moral crisis, a period where many would turn away from faith, and the values that once held societies together would crumble. People would lose their sense of right and wrong, and the world would be overrun by those who sought power and control. Padre Pio saw this moral decay as a direct consequence of straying too far from God. The world would become obsessed with materialism, pleasure, and power. Humanity's desire for selfish gains would outweigh everything else. The rich would become more selfish, and the poor would suffer in silence. There would be those who tried to exploit the chaos for their own benefit, taking advantage of the suffering of others. There's also Padre Pio's prediction about an entire country disappearing off the map that is most mysterious and haunting. It's a vision that defies logic and raises countless questions. How does a nation vanish? What forces could cause such an event? The implications are vast and unsettling. One possibility lies in the power of nature. Rising sea levels have already begun swallowing up parts of low-lying islands. Entire nations like the Maldives face the looming threat of extinction as the ocean slowly reclaims their land. If the prophecy aligns with this reality, 2025 could mark the year where one such nation is consumed completely, leaving behind an empty expanse of water where homes, schools, and lives once thrived. Is this to be expected? How the world would respond to the strange occurrences. History has seen powerful empires crumble, their names confined to history books. Yugoslavia disintegrated into smaller states after years of tension. Could Padre Pio's vision foretell something similar? Perhaps a modern-day nation, fractured by civil war or economic ruin, splinters into chaos, losing its identity and vanishing as a cohesive entity. Then there's the spiritual interpretation, a divine reckoning. Stories from sacred texts, such as the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, hint at what happens when nations stray too far from morality. A nation steeped in corruption, greed, and moral decay might face divine judgment, erased not by human hands but by forces beyond comprehension. The human cost of such an event is staggering. Entire populations displaced, families scattered, and a culture wiped from existence. Refugees would flood into neighboring nations, their lives reduced to memories of a homeland that no longer exists. The weight of such a loss would reverberate globally, reshaping borders, economies, and alliances. Global leaders would be thrust into chaos, diplomacies would strain, markets would destabilize, and the world order as we know it would be challenged. The disappearance of a country wouldn't just be a localized tragedy. It would force the world to confront the fragility of international structures and the interconnectedness of all nations. Despite the grim nature of this prophecy, Padre Pio's visions often carried a message of hope and redemption. Through prayer, faith, and a collective return to morality, he believed humanity could avert disaster. This prediction could be less of a doomed forecast and more of a wake-up call, a chance for reflection and action before it's too late. The disappearance of a country, whether by natural, political, or spiritual means, underscores the fragility of human constructs. If there's one lesson to draw, it's that humanity's choices today will shape the future. And in this case, the stakes couldn't be higher. In this dark future, people would search desperately for answers, but many would be deceived. The deceptive forces of evil would seem to have all the answers, offering promises of salvation, but leading many astray. Only the true followers of faith, those who held steadfast to their beliefs, would see through the lies and be prepared for what was coming. Padre Pio's predictions don't stop with natural disasters and societal collapse. He also foresaw the rise of a false leader, someone who would deceive the world with false promises of peace and unity. But behind the facade, this leader would bring nothing but chaos and destruction. This leader wouldn't be like the dictators of the past, not a figure easily recognized by their cruelty or force. Instead, they would be charming, charismatic, and deeply persuasive. They would appeal to the masses, promising to fix all of society's problems, to restore order, and to make the world a better place. They would sound like a savior, offering easy solutions to complicated issues. But Padre Pio saw through the facade. Padre Pio's prophecies didn't just focus on a false leader. He spoke of the coming of the Antichrist, a terrifying figure who would emerge at the height of humanity's suffering. This wasn't just a political leader or a deceptive figure, but a demonic force who would attempt to destroy the very fabric of humanity. The Antichrist, as Padre Pio predicted, would come in a time when humanity was at its weakest. People, devastated by natural disasters, social collapse, and economic ruin, would be desperate for someone or something to restore order. The Antichrist would appear as a charismatic savior, offering hope to those who were struggling to survive. His ability to manipulate the hearts and minds of those around him would be unlike anything the world had ever seen. He would promise to bring peace, unity, and prosperity, but his true intentions were far more sinister. But what could stop this? What could bring us back from the brink of this destruction? The miracle of the final battle. Well, Padre Pio didn't leave us without hope. He gave us the path forward. Amidst all the calamities and suffering, Padre Pio offered one answer: spiritual preparation. He said that faith, prayer, and repentance were the only way to survive the trials ahead. In the midst of these dire prophecies, Padre Pio also foresaw a moment of miraculous intervention. Despite the growing darkness, there would be a time when the forces of evil, led by the Antichrist, would seem to be on the verge of total victory. But just when it appeared that all hope was lost, God's divine power would intervene. Padre Pio predicted that this moment would come as a final battle between good and evil, a confrontation that would decide the fate of humanity. It would not be a battle fought with weapons, but one fought through faith, courage, and divine intervention. The faithful, those who had endured the suffering of the tribulations, would stand as the last line of defense against the forces of darkness. In this final confrontation, miracles would occur. People who had remained faithful would experience visions of hope, and through their prayers, the power of evil would begin to wane. Padre Pio spoke of a divine light that would shine through the darkness, driving back the Antichrist's influence. It would be a light that no darkness could overcome, a force that would show the world that even in the face of utter destruction, God's power was still supreme. This miracle would mark the beginning of a new era of peace. The Antichrist would be defeated, and humanity would be given a chance to rebuild. But this rebuilding wouldn't just be about physical structures or political systems. It would be about a return to moral and spiritual values. Padre Pio believed that only through faith and unity could the world heal from the wounds of the tribulations. The battle would not be easy, and the road to victory would be long, but the faithful would find comfort in knowing that, no matter how bad things seemed, God's plan would triumph. Padre Pio's message was clear. Even in the darkest of times, light would shine through. One of Padre Pio's most profound prophecies was centered around the Sacred Heart of Jesus. He believed that, after a time of great suffering, the Sacred Heart would reign triumphantly over the world, bringing with it peace, healing, and a renewed sense of divine love. Padre Pio's devotion to the Sacred Heart was deep, and he often spoke about how this devotion would lead to spiritual renewal for the Church and the world. He foresaw a time when faith would be challenged more than ever before, a time when people would face increasing chaos in the world and feel helpless against the tide of negative forces. For this reason, he stressed the importance of holding on to the rosary, even more so as a lifeline for believers in these trying times. He predicted that the rosary would become not just a devotional practice, but a crucial spiritual tool to overcome adversity. He foresaw a period of great upheaval followed by a peaceful era where people would once again turn to God, seeking repentance, forgiveness, and a life of virtue. This, according to Padre Pio, would be the victory of the Sacred Heart, a moment when Christ's love would envelop the earth and lead to the salvation of souls and the restoration of peace. It was this belief in the triumph of divine love that gave Padre Pio such great hope for the future. Even in the midst of prophecies of war, division, and confusion, he never lost faith that God's love would win in the end. The final moment, death and divine message. A day after Padre Pio's 50th anniversary of receiving the visible stigmata, Padre Pio was scheduled to celebrate his 50th anniversary with a special Mass.
To honor this beloved saint, Holy Mass on the anniversary of Padre Pio's canonization.
But his poor health left him weak and exhausted. He requested a simpler ceremony to conserve his energy, but the sight of the large crowd gathered to honor him filled his heart with compassion. He decided to proceed with the full celebration, drawing strength from the devotees' enthusiasm. Despite his physical limitations, Padre Pio's spirit remained strong, and he conducted the Mass with deep connection and empathy. His eyes shone with an inner light, illuminating the faces before him. In this moment, his selflessness and devotion triumphed over his weakness, leaving a lasting impact on the congregation. With fierce determination, Padre Pio celebrated the milestone, his heart filled with love and gratitude for the faithful who had gathered to share in his joy.
When you gossip about a person, it means that you have removed the person from your heart. But be aware, when you remove a man from your heart, Jesus also goes away from your heart and with that man.
As the Mass commenced, Padre Pio's frailty and weakness were palpable, his struggles to celebrate the ceremony evident. His usual fervor and dedication were still present, but his physical limitations were starkly apparent. As he endeavored to proceed, his confusion grew, his words becoming jumbled and incoherent. The strain proved too great, and he ultimately collapsed at the altar, his body surrendering to his prolonged illness. His attendants rushed to his side, conveying him to his room where he rested for several hours, his exhaustion and weakness plain to see. Later, he endeavored to bless the faithful from his wheelchair, his spirit unwavering despite his physical frailty. However, his strength failed him once more, and he fainted again, his body betraying his indomitable will. Despite his valiant efforts to persevere, Padre Pio's physical limitations ultimately proved insurmountable. His body, worn down by his prolonged illness, finally succumbed to his suffering. Little did they know it was going to be his last mass celebration on earth.
Padre Pio, one of the greatest saints of the 20th century, would often wake early in the morning, asking whoever was caring for him if it was time for Mass yet. He would sit in his chair for several hours saying the rosary and preparing for Mass.
On that fateful evening, Padre Pio had called Padre Pellegrino to his room with a weak and shaky voice. Padre Pellegrino, one of the three priests who took turns with Padre Onorato and Padre Miriano, attending to Padre Pio's needs at night, hastily responded to the summons, only to find the sick priest lying on his bed, his eyes red and swollen from intense weeping. Padre Pio's voice trembled with emotion as he inquired about the time, his words cracking with sorrow. Padre Pellegrino, familiar with Padre Pio's propensity for tearful prayers, didn't attribute much significance to this display of emotion and simply replied, gently wiping away the tears from his own eyes. He had grown accustomed to witnessing Padre Pio's deep spiritual anguish and assumed this was just another manifestation of his intense devotion. Little did he know that this moment marked a poignant turning point in Padre Pio's life, one that would forever etch itself in the records of time. Throughout that evening, Padre Pio kept calling Padre Pellegrino into his room at intervals, repeatedly asking for the time. His voice grew weaker with each passing moment, his words barely audible. Padre Pellegrino's concern deepened, but he couldn't quite put his finger on what was amiss. He continued to answer Padre Pio's queries, trying to offer the little comfort he could. At midnight, Padre Pio's tone changed, and with a shaky voice requested Padre Pellegrino to stay with him in his room. Padre Pellegrino, though perplexed by the unusual request, gladly agreed and settled into the armchair beside Padre Pio's bed, where he normally stays any time he enters his room. But Padre Pio insisted he sit on the bed, grasping his hand tightly as he began to tremble like a frightened child. Padre Pellegrino, struggling to understand the reason behind Padre Pio's strange behavior, continued to answer his queries about the time, wiping away his tears.
During the course of the Mass, he would cry almost continuously. To an inquirer about this, he said, "I don't want to shed small tears. I want to shed a flood of tears."
A few minutes passed, and Padre Pio asked Padre Pellegrino to celebrate Mass for him. Padre Pellegrino, confused, replied that he already said Mass for Padre Pio's intentions daily. But Padre Pio's response sent a chill down his spine when he said, "No, I want you to say Mass for my soul." Though Padre Pellegrino found this statement strange, he couldn't bring himself to ask for clarification, sensing that something profound was unfolding. As the night wore on, Padre Pio's grip on Padre Pellegrino's hand tightened, his eyes fixed on the clock, as if he knew his death was coups. He kept looking at the clock and status of Joseph the Carpenter and Virgin Mary that was hung on his wall. The air was thick with an unspoken understanding, a sense of urgency and gravity that Padre Pellegrino couldn't quite grasp. He continued to answer Padre Pio's queries, his heart heavy with empathy, as the elderly priest's life slowly slipped away. Also, Padre Pio requested that Padre Pellegrino hear his confession, despite not being his regular confessor. With a sense of urgency, he asked Padre Pellegrino to convey a message to the brothers and his spiritual children. In case the Lord should call him that day, he wanted them to forgive him for any troubles he may have caused, and to pray for his soul. Padre Pellegrino, reassuring him, said that he still had a long time to live. However, Padre Pio asked for his final blessings for the brothers and his spiritual children, which he granted. Then, in a move that terrified Padre Pellegrino, Padre Pio asked to renew his Franciscan vows, a ritual typically done on one's deathbed. After renewing his vows, he asked Padre Pellegrino to accompany him to the veranda to gaze at the stars. Despite his severe arthritis, which had confined him to a wheelchair, Padre Pio rose from his chair and walked to the veranda with ease, without any support, which left Padre Pellegrino perplexed. Padre Pio fixed his gaze on the exact spot where his lifeless body would be carried later that morning. As they gazed up to the sky, Padre Pio's eyes seemed to hold a deep secret, a secret that would soon be revealed to all. As they stood on the veranda, Padre Pio's strength suddenly failed him, and he became severely ill, unable to move. Padre Pellegrino rushed to his side, helping him back to his room. The sudden turn of events left Padre Pellegrino perplexed and deeply concerned. He couldn't comprehend the mystical forces at play, but he knew that Padre Pio's time was drawing to a close. As the night wore on, Padre Pio's body grew weaker, his spirit preparing to depart from this world. As Padre Pio's physical strength decreased, he repeatedly whispered Jesus and Mary with devotion.
He was so weak, he could barely speak, but he was able to repeat the words, Jesus, Mary.
His gaze drifted to the portrait of his mother on the wall opposite the couch. With a curious expression on his face, he asked Padre Pellegrino who the person in that portrait is, and he told him that the person is his mother, that is Padre Pio's mother. But to Padre Pellegrino's surprise, he told him that he, Padre Pio, saw two mothers there. Padre Pellegrino wondered if Padre Pio's vision was failing him, and he drew closer to the picture to clarify. "Father, this frame holds a photo of your mother," Padre Pellegrino explained. But Padre Pio's gaze remained steady, and he declared, "I can see very well, my son, and I assure you, there are two mothers in that portrait."
Regarding the two mothers, there are only a few possibilities. He could have meant he was seeing his spiritual mother Mary, Mother of God, and his biological mother.
It was then that Padre Pellegrino understood that the second mother he perceived was none other than the Blessed Virgin Mary, a testament to his profound spiritual insight. It was believed that Padre Pio received a message from God through Virgin Mary, as he always does since his childhood, as he was the only person that saw Virgin Mary without Padre Pellegrino seeing her that very moment. And the message is, "My son, do not fail to write down what you hear today from my lips, so that you may not forget it. I am faithful, and no creature will be lost unwittingly."
I thank you for loving me. I thank you for sending your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, to the world to save and to set me free. I trust in your power and grace that can sustain and restore me.
Light is very different from darkness. I invariably attract to myself the soul to whom I am accustomed to speak. Padre Pio's sickness, last days. Padre Pio's life was marked by a series of debilitating illnesses, which include bronchitis, arthritis, cardiovascular diseases, and other illnesses that significantly impacted his daily life and ministry. He remained devoted to his faith regardless of his health issues, and continued to serve the Lord with unwavering dedication. In an attempt to find relief and improve his health, he was forced to move between different convents, hoping that a change of environment would bring some relief. However, every effort to reintegrate him into monastic life proved abortive, and he was ultimately confined to his home in Pietrelcina for 7 long years. Padre Pio's prolonged period of isolation was a significant challenge for him, as it contradicted the core values of the Franciscan order. The order emphasized the importance of communal living and shared spiritual experiences, which were essential to the spiritual growth and development of its members. However, Padre Pio's ill health forced him to live outside the monastery, separating him from his brothers and the community he loved. The Superior General of the order was deeply concerned about Padre Pio's situation and the potential impact it could have on his spiritual well-being. He was so troubled that he considered taking the drastic measure of expelling Padre Pio from the order altogether. This decision would have been a severe blow to Padre Pio, who had dedicated his life to the Franciscan order and its values.
Padre Pio's respect for the Franciscan habit. And of course, the habit is the very distinctive robe that the Franciscans wear.
However, after careful consideration and consultation with other members of the order, the Superior General decided not to expel Padre Pio. Instead, he allowed him to continue living outside the monastery until his health was fully restored. This decision was a testament to the order's compassion and understanding, as well as their recognition of Padre Pio's extraordinary spiritual gifts and his contribution to the order.
Here, too, in front of this cross, he received his most extraordinary spiritual gifts, the visible wounds of Christ, the stigmata.
One of the most striking features of Padre Pio's health struggles was their mysterious nature, which left both medical professionals and lay people in a state of wonder. His various ailments, which seemed to defy the understanding of medical science, would manifest and disappear suddenly without warning, leaving everyone perplexed. The intensity of his fevers in particular was so high that a bath thermometer was necessary to measure their severity. Padre Pio's experiences during this time were a poignant reminder that spiritual growth and intimacy with God often come at a great personal cost. While some people believed that his sickness is not from God, a good number of his followers believed that his sickness was a testament to his faith, attributing it to his stigmata.
The Passion of the Christ, he manifested these injuries upon his body. Now here's the reason why I say that it was his belief, actually the wounds of Jesus. Padre Pio's stigmata was here.
The mysterious nature of Padre Pio's illnesses also underscored the limitations of human understanding and the need for faith in the face of uncertainty. The miraculous life of Padre Pio. During Padre Pio's residence at the monastery of Montefusco, he would often gather chestnuts from the nearby forest and send them to his Aunt Daria in Pietrelcina. On one occasion, she received a bag of chestnuts from him, and after consuming them, saved the bag as a souvenir. Few days later, while searching for something in a drawer containing gunpowder, a candle's flame accidentally ignited the powder, causing her face to be severely burned. In a moment of instinct, she pressed her face into the bag that had held the chestnuts, and remarkably, her pain vanished, along with the wounds and scars. This extraordinary event was a testament to Padre Pio's remarkable ability to impart spiritual healing and protection through even the simplest of objects. The bag, once a mundane vessel for chestnuts, had become a conduit for divine grace, highlighting Padre Pio's extraordinary capacity to channel God's power. That wasn't all. Another remarkable miracle involved a woman named Paulina from San Giovanni, whom Padre Pio held in high esteem. She fell gravely ill, and her condition was deemed hopeless by medical professionals. Her distraught husband and children sought Padre Pio's intercession, imploring him to pray for her recovery. After devoting himself to prayer, Padre Pio assured them that she would recover on Easter Day, which indeed came to pass. This miraculous recovery, along with the chestnut incident, demonstrated Padre Pio's remarkable ability to discern the depths of human suffering and his unwavering faith in the resurrection and the redemptive power of Christ. His assurance of Paulina's recovery on Easter Day, a time of profound spiritual significance, served as a testament to his unshakable trust in the divine. Again, a distraught woman, whose husband lay bedridden and ailing, hastened to the convent, her heart heavy with worry and desperation. Though she yearned for Padre Pio's guidance and intercession, fear and trepidation held her back from approaching him directly. Instead, she sought solace in the compassionate ears of the Virgin Mary, pouring out her heart in fervent prayer. With tears streaming down her face, she confided in the Mother of God, sharing her deepest fears and anxieties about her husband's precarious health. She also expressed her ardent desire for Padre Pio's help, though she felt unworthy and hesitant to ask him directly. The woman's prayer was a heartfelt cry for mercy, a plea for divine intervention in her time of need. As she made her way towards the church, she unexpectedly crossed paths with Padre Pio himself.
One day while praying alone, Padre Pio opened his eyes and saw an old man. He wondered how the man got into the friary as all the doors were locked. He asked the man what he wanted, and the man replied, introducing himself.
Yet, despite her intense longing for his help, she couldn't muster the courage to ask him directly. Her fear and doubt held her back, leaving her frozen in silence. But then, something remarkable happened. Padre Pio, with his piercing eyes and gentle smile, addressed her in a soft yet authoritative tone. "Woman of little faith, when will you finally ask for my help?" His words were a gentle rebuke, a reminder that faith and trust must be accompanied by action. The woman stood there perplexed, her eyes locked onto Padre Pio's, her heart pounding in her chest. She was taken aback by his uncanny ability to read her thoughts and intentions, though she had not spoken a word. His words resonated deep within her soul, a reminder that her faith, though faltering at times, was not unnoticed by the divine. With a reassuring smile, Padre Pio then instructed her to return home, promising that everything would be settled. His words were a balm to her troubled soul, a reminder that the divine was at work in her life. The woman, filled with renewed hope and trust, hastened back to her home, her heart overflowing with gratitude. Upon her arrival, she was met with a miraculous sight. Her husband, once at death's doorstep, was now restored to full health, his eyes shining with renewed vitality. The woman's heart overflowed with joy and thanksgiving, knowing that Padre Pio's intercession had wrought this wonder. She realized that her faith, though imperfect and faltering at times, had been rewarded by the saint's boundless compassion and understanding. The multitude of miracles surrounding Padre Pio's life and ministry served as a beacon of hope for countless individuals, offering a glimpse into the profound mysteries of the divine. His extraordinary gifts and unwavering dedication to his faith continue to inspire and guide generations, cementing his legacy as a champion of hope, healing, and redemption.
Lord, I pray for that one receiving now. And I ask that your healing power would begin to flow like a mighty river. Holy Spirit, let your presence and power be sensed in the room even now.
Padre Pio's remarkable life and ministry were marked by numerous miracles, each testifying to his extraordinary spiritual gifts and his profound connection with the divine. The miracle of the boiling water, the miracle of the firing squad, and the miracle of the rain, the miracle of the awakening child among others, all demonstrated his remarkable ability to channel God's power and impart spiritual healing and protection. Padre Pio's extraordinary life and ministry continue to be a beacon of inspiration and guidance for countless individuals, serving as a poignant reminder of the profound mysteries of the divine and the transformative power of faith.
Some of this morning's headlines now from around the globe. USA Today has good news for all know the Simpsons live in Springfield. And the Oregonian reports their hometown is based on Springfield, Oregon. Simpsons creator Matt Groening grew up not far from there. He was inspired by another television show set in a town called Springfield.
The Simpsons show is like a crystal ball for the future. Over the years, this iconic series has dropped predictions that seemed absurd at the time, but later turned into real-world headlines.
This is Kent Brockman reporting to you on a crisis so serious it has its own name and theme music. The dome has put an end to life as we know it. The town is running low on supplies of everything from gasoline to Botox.
From tech gadgets we now can't live without to shocking global tragedies, The Simpsons has been right all along. But among the countless prophecies, some stand out as the most historical. Which of the show's prophecies fall into this category? In this video, we will reveal the top 20 predictions of The Simpsons. Don Mattingly's hair. In 1992, The Simpsons aired an episode titled Homer at the Bat.
In 1992, Don Mattingly appeared on an episode of The Simpsons called Homer at Bat,
which became a classic partly because of its humor and its lineup of famous baseball players from the time. One standout moment involved Don Mattingly getting benched by Mr. Burns for refusing to trim his sideburns, even though he clearly didn't have any. The joke worked so well because of how absurd it was, but what made it even more interesting was how closely it mirrored something from Mattingly's real life. In 1991, Mattingly found himself in trouble with the Yankees because of his hair. The team had strict grooming rules, and Mattingly's longer hair didn't fit the look they wanted. He was fined, and even removed from the roster briefly for not cutting it. He eventually agreed to get a haircut, but the whole situation became a talking point. What makes this connection so fascinating is that the Simpsons episode was recorded before Mattingly's real-life hair drama. The coincidence added another layer to the joke and made it even more memorable for fans. This is just one of many accurate predictions. Stay tuned to find out more.
Mattingly, get rid of those sideburns.
What sideburns?
You heard me, hippie. Mattingly, For the last time, get rid of those sideburns.
Look, Mr. Burns.
NSA spying. In The Simpsons show, the family escapes an angry mob in Springfield after Homer's actions lead to the town being sealed under a giant dome. They flee to Alaska, but Marge and the kids decide to return to help save Springfield. On their way back, there's a moment that stands out. Lisa reassures Marge, saying the government isn't listening to everyone's conversations, only for the scene to cut to a massive NSA surveillance operation tracking their every word. It's played for laughs, but feels eerily close to reality. Years later, in 2013, Edward Snowden revealed the extent of the NSA's surveillance programs. These programs were designed to monitor communications globally, gathering data from phone calls, emails, and more. The public was shocked by how widespread this monitoring was. What makes this Simpsons moment so striking is how it mirrored real concerns about privacy and government surveillance before they became widely known. This scene went from a clever joke to something that hit much closer to home once Snowden's revelations came to light. Canadian legalizing marijuana. In the 2005 episode Midnight RX, Homer and his friends head to Canada to buy cheaper medication, but the trip takes an unexpected turn when Ned Flanders meets his Canadian counterpart. At first, the two bond over their wholesome personalities, but things quickly change when the Canadian version of Ned casually offers him marijuana, calling it legal here. The real Ned is horrified and immediately calls him a satanic temptation before storming off. At the time, this scene was nothing more than a joke, as marijuana was still illegal in Canada except for medical use. Fast forward to 2018, and Canada made headlines by passing the Cannabis Act.
The Cannabis Act may officially roll out tomorrow, but that doesn't mean New Yorkers can drive over the border and legally purchase recreational pot from a dispensary,
fully legalizing marijuana for recreational use across the country. This decision made Canada one of the first major countries to take such a step. What started as a humorous jab on The Simpsons ended up being a reality years later. The joke about legal marijuana in Canada suddenly felt like a moment where fiction aligned with real-world changes in surprising ways. Zombie apocalypse. In Treehouse of Horror XX, The Simpsons imagined a zombie apocalypse triggered by a food disaster. The chaos began with a product called Burger Square, created from cannibalistic cows. When Kent Brockman took a bite, he transformed into a mindless, ravenous creature, spreading the infection throughout Springfield. The town quickly fell into chaos, with residents turning into zombies driven by insatiable hunger. The Simpson family fought to survive, with Bart proving to be mysteriously immune to the outbreak. While zombies may seem unrealistic, the concept of a food-related crisis is not. Foodborne illnesses, unsafe farming practices, and risky food production methods have shown how fragile the global food supply can be. Outbreaks of E. coli, salmonella, and other deadly pathogens have already caused widespread concern. The episode also highlighted how panic spreads when food safety is compromised, creating a domino effect of fear and chaos. Cypress Hill meets Symphony. If you look back at the 1996 episode titled Homerpalooza, you'll see that The Simpsons took a playful jab at music festival culture, featuring a scene where a producer asks if anyone ordered the London Symphony Orchestra. He then turns to Cypress Hill, a hip-hop group, and the band jokingly decides to collaborate. What follows is a surreal mix of Insane in the Brain with classical music, which even Marge enthusiastically approves of. The scene's humor lies in the absurdity of pairing a hip-hop act with a world-renowned orchestra, something that felt like pure parody at the time. Fast forward to 2024, and reality caught up with fiction. Cypress Hill, known for their iconic sound, announced a performance with the London Symphony Orchestra at the Royal Albert Hall in England. This wasn't their first time combining hip-hop with classical music, as they had worked with orchestras in the US before. The Simpsons' comedic take on this unlikely pairing ended up foreshadowing an actual event, proving once again how the show has a knack for turning what seems improbable into reality. Gaga's Flight. In 2012, The Simpsons aired an episode called Lisa Goes Gaga, where Lady Gaga visits Springfield to boost the town's spirits. During her performance, she wears a silver outfit, and uses cables to fly above the crowd.
Did Lady Gaga get her inspiration for her Super Bowl halftime show from, of all things, The Simpsons? With uncanny accuracy, 4 years ago, the show actually predicted she'd fly through the air. Just look at the similarities from the 2012 episode.
Showcasing her over-the-top style. The scene, full of humor and exaggeration, fit perfectly with Gaga's reputation for bold, theatrical performances. At the time, it felt like a fun parody of her unique stage presence and creative costumes. 5 years later, reality mirrored animation during Lady Gaga's Super Bowl halftime show. Dressed in a sparkling silver outfit and boots, she started her performance perched high above the stadium. With cables supporting her, she descended onto the stage, creating a dramatic entrance that felt straight out of her Simpsons appearance. The resemblance between the show and her real-life performance was hard to ignore, especially with the similar use of cables and costumes. What began as a playful take on Gaga's celebrity life turned into a surprisingly accurate depiction of one of her most iconic moments: Trump's presidency. The Simpsons once aired an episode in 2000 that imagined a future where Lisa became the President of the United States. During her presidency, she faced a significant financial crisis passed down from her predecessor, who happened to be President Trump. In the scene, Lisa meets with her team to discuss the financial situation, and it's revealed that the country is completely out of money. This moment stood out as a playful jab at politics, but gained new meaning when Donald Trump actually won the presidency in 2016. Bart's future in the same episode was a sharp contrast to Lisa's. He was depicted as a middle-aged slacker, still aimless, and living with Ralph Wiggum. While Bart struggled to get his life together, Lisa had risen to the highest office in the town, taking on responsibilities that included cleaning up after Trump's administration. When Trump's election became a reality, The Simpsons responded with a chalkboard gag reflecting their surprise at being right, solidifying the episode as one of their most memorable predictions. AI taking over jobs. Mr. Burns decided to replace his power plant workers with robots in one episode in 2012, leaving Homer and his co-workers without jobs. The robots, trained by humans, quickly proved they could handle the tasks more efficiently, making the employees obsolete. What seemed like an amusing exaggeration at the time now feels more like a glimpse into reality. By 2025, artificial intelligence is transforming industries at an incredible pace. Restaurants in countries like Japan are using robots to serve meals, while self-driving cars are beginning to take over the role of taxi drivers. AI tools are being used in areas like coding, graphic design, and even financial analysis, replacing traditional roles. Programs such as ChatGPT have become essential for businesses looking to save money, often at the expense of human jobs. The idea of machines reshaping the workforce is no longer fiction. It is becoming part of daily life. The most amazing part of the video is just ahead: Nobel Prize in Economics. The Nobel Prize announcements took center stage in a 2010 episode of The Simpsons. During a scene where Lisa and her friends are watching the ceremony, Martin celebrates as his pick in the economics category wins. The betting table reveals Milhouse's bet on a specific economist, Bengt R. Holmstrom. At the time, this felt like a fun, fictional moment, but in 2016, it became a surprising reality. Holmstrom, alongside Oliver Hart, was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences for their groundbreaking work on contract theory.
This year's Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences has been awarded to British-born Oliver Hart and Finland-born Bengt Holmstrom for their contributions to contract theory.
The episode's prediction was one of those wild, almost impossible-to-believe moments where the show seemed to foresee a future Nobel winner. While the episode took a lighthearted approach to the prestigious awards, it turned out that Milhouse's choice was right on the money. This wasn't just another random joke. It became a true instance of fiction aligning with reality, leaving fans in disbelief at the show's accuracy. FIFA controversy. In the Simpsons episode You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee, the show took aim at FIFA with a satirical look at corruption within international soccer. The plot featured corrupt officials being arrested, humorously highlighting the bribery and scandal that had long plagued the sport. Just a few years after the episode aired in 2014, real-life FIFA executives were arrested on similar charges, proving how on point the show's predictions were. As we reach 2025, FIFA is still tangled in controversy. The aftermath of the 2018 and 2022 World Cup bids continues to stir debates about fairness, transparency, and ethical practices in the sport. The show even predicted Brazil's heavy loss to Germany in the 2014 World Cup semifinals, making its mix of humor and reality even more uncanny. Homer's stand against bribery was a humorous moment, but it also highlights the difficulty of keeping the sport free from scandal in the real world. Daenerys' rampage. The final season of Game of Thrones got people talking for all the wrong reasons.
The soothsayers at The Simpsons have done it again. This time, they correctly predicted the ending to the most recent episode of Game of Thrones.
One of the most shocking moments was Daenerys Targaryen's turn in the episode The Bells. With her dragon Drogon, she destroys King's Landing, turning it into ashes. Fans were stunned by how fast her character changed, but the scene also reminded some of a moment from The Simpsons. In 2017, 2 years before this Game of Thrones episode aired, The Simpsons released The Simpsons, a parody of fantasy stories. In the episode, Homer brings a dragon back to life. Soon after, the dragon goes on a rampage, flying over the town and setting everything on fire. The chaos left behind looked a lot like what happened in King's Landing. Fans noticed how closely the two scenes matched: a dragon, fire raining down, and a town in ruins. Some even joked that Game of Thrones writers might have been inspired by The Simpsons. The timing of the two moments made this comparison hard to ignore and gave fans another thing to talk about: Disney buying Fox. Disney buying Fox was one of the biggest deals in entertainment history, but The Simpsons had already hinted at it years earlier. In an episode where Homer takes on a bizarre new job, he befriends Kim Basinger, Alec Baldwin, and Ron Howard. Acting as their assistant, Homer pitches a strange movie idea about a killer robot driving instructor who travels back in time. While the idea gets plenty of laughs, the real standout moment comes when Ron Howard takes the screenplay to 20th Century Fox. In a quick shot of the Fox studio lot, there's a sign above the entrance that reads, "A division of Walt Disney Company." At the time, it seemed like a clever joke, but fast forward to 2019, and Disney officially purchased 20th Century Fox. This deal made Disney the owners of major franchises and, of course, The Simpsons. Fans were quick to remember this episode after the merger. Once again, The Simpsons had made an unlikely prediction that actually came true, adding to its reputation for eerily accurate moments. Horsemeat scandal. In 2013, Europe faced a major scandal when horsemeat was found in food products that were labeled as beef. The controversy shook the food industry, with investigations revealing how widespread the issue was. Shockingly, this bizarre moment in history was hinted at years earlier in an episode of The Simpsons. In the 1994 episode Sweet Seymour Skinner's Badass Song, Santa's little helper causes chaos after being brought to school by Bart for show and tell. The real twist comes when the dog finds himself in the school kitchen. While sniffing around, viewers catch a quick shot of lunch lady Doris cooking with a container labeled horse meat. The label even mentions extra intimate pieces, with a cheeky comment about iron content. At the time, the gag seemed like a funny exaggeration about cafeteria food, but years later, the real-life horsemeat scandal gave the joke a strange new meaning. People couldn't help but point out how The Simpsons had once again joked about something long before it made headlines. The Godfather Part 3. The Simpsons loved making fun of movies, and they didn't miss the chance to take a shot at The Godfather Part 3. In the 2001 episode Worst Episode Ever, Bart and Milhouse sneak into comic book guy's secret collection of movies. Among the strange titles, there was one that grabbed attention. It was called Godfather 3 Good Version. This playful dig was aimed at the third film in the famous trilogy, which many fans felt was not as strong as the first two. Years later, in 2020, Paramount decided to revisit the movie. They released The Godfather Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone, a re-edited version of the 1990 film. Francis Ford Coppola worked on this new version, and Al Pacino also showed his support for it. They believed the updated cut gave the movie a fresh perspective and solved some of its earlier problems. Fans seemed to appreciate this new take on the story, and some even said it felt closer to the level of the first two films. We bet that at this point, you're on the edge of your seat, and the predictions are about to get more shocking. Springfield legalizes gambling. Springfield decided to legalize gambling to boost its economy, and soon, Mr. Burns opened his own casino. One of the big attractions at the casino was a magician duo called Gunther and Ernst, who performed with a white tiger named Anastasia. During one of their shows, Anastasia suddenly remembers her capture and her life in the wild. This flashback sets her off, and she attacks Gunther and Ernst right in the middle of their performance. This scene was a clear parody of Siegfried and Roy, the famous duo known for their magic shows with white lions and tigers. Sadly, about a decade after this episode aired, a similar incident happened in real life. While performing at the MGM Grand, Roy was attacked by a 400-pound Siberian tiger named Manticore. The attack left him with severe injuries, forcing him to retire. Though he survived, the incident marked the end of their live performances and remains one of the most talked-about moments in entertainment history. Space travel. In a 1999 episode of The Simpsons, Richard Branson's spaceflight was predicted long before it actually happened. During the episode, Homer and Lisa travel to Puerto Rico to prove that a painting Homer bought for just $20 isn't a fake. While talking to an art forger named Klaus Ziegler, the show briefly cuts to Richard Branson in space. At the time, private space travel was something people only dreamed about. This quick moment happened 7 years before Branson's actual Virgin Galactic flight in 2021. The show didn't make a big deal out of the cutaway, but it's clear now that they were showing a glimpse of the future of space travel. Branson's mission was the start of a new chapter in space tourism, something that seemed impossible back then. What makes this prediction interesting is how The Simpsons slipped it in so casually, with no fanfare. It wasn't the focus of the episode, yet it turned out to be right about Branson's space journey years before it happened. Faulty voting machines. In a 2008 Halloween episode of The Simpsons, Homer tries to vote for Barack Obama in the presidential election, but the voting machine keeps registering his vote for John McCain. As Homer struggles with the machine, he gets frustrated and says, "This machine is rigged. Must tell President McCain this doesn't happen in America." While this was a funny and over-the-top moment in the show, it turned out to be eerily similar to real-life events during the 2012 presidential election. In that election, footage surfaced of a voter trying to cast a vote for Obama, but the machine would select Mitt Romney instead. The situation in Ohio was widely reported, with many noticing the strange resemblance to Homer's voting machine problem. The episode was fictional, but it seemed to predict the kind of glitches that could happen with electronic voting machines. It was an unexpected prediction of a real issue in the election, showing how The Simpsons can sometimes capture future events in the most unexpected ways. Smartwatches. Back in 1995, an episode of The Simpsons gave viewers a glimpse of the future through Lisa's story. In this episode, Lisa, as an adult in 2010, finds herself in a world where technology has evolved in surprising ways. Among these changes, two standout moments caught attention. First, when Lisa calls her mom, Marge, it's through a video phone. Marge, unprepared for being seen, reacts hilariously, forgetting how the camera works. It's a fun twist that highlighted how such technology could feel new and unfamiliar. Another interesting detail is during Hugh's proposal to Lisa. Instead of pulling out a traditional ring box or going down on one knee, he uses a sleek smart device that resembles today's smartwatches. This tiny gadget is not just a watch, but also a communication tool, combining convenience with technology in a way that felt ahead of its time. Both moments gave a creative nod to innovations we now take for granted, showing how such ideas felt futuristic decades ago. These scenes are fun reminders of how far we've come. There's more to find out. Late Beatle post. Marge Simpson's artistic journey took an unexpected turn in brush with greatness. Her love for painting seemed unstoppable until she mailed a portrait of Ringo Starr, hoping for his thoughts. Years went by with no reply, and Marge slowly lost her drive to create. The canvas sat untouched as she moved on with her life, her passion buried under the weight of silence. Decades later, something very shocking happened. Ringo, while sorting through old fan mail, stumbled upon Marge's forgotten artwork. Moved by her effort, he penned a heartfelt note, praising her talent and even hanging the portrait on his wall. That small gesture reignited Marge's creativity, proving how impactful recognition can be, even years later. Interestingly, this moment mirrored a real-life story. In 1963, two fans sent a taped message to the Beatles that never reached them. More years after, the recording surfaced and made its way to Paul McCartney in 2013. He responded warmly, closing a loop that had been open for 50 years. The parallels between these tales highlight the timeless power of connection and gratitude. World War III.
Wake up, everybody! It's World War III! Quick, down to the fallout shelter. The bombs are dropping!
In the year 2000, The Simpsons aired an episode that depicted a grim future, imagining the outbreak of World War III. The episode showed chaos everywhere as people ran for safety while bombs rained down. What once seemed like an exaggerated scenario now feels eerily close to reality. Global tensions are higher than ever, with ongoing conflicts such as the war between Russia and Ukraine and unrest across the Middle East fueling division. Major powers like the United States, China, and Russia remain locked in a complex web of alliances and rivalries, making the idea of a large-scale war less far-fetched. The episode also featured Lisa Simpson as president, stepping into office after Donald Trump. Her struggles to manage a crumbling budget served as a commentary on the challenges of leadership during times of crisis. The world in 2025 seems to mirror some of these elements, with economic instability, political unrest, and rising global tensions, creating a sense of unease that feels uncomfortably familiar to the show's prediction. When that was out of the way, she warmly greets the actor before revealing that her mother had a crush on Tom Cruise 30 years ago and playfully admits that she shares the same admiration for the actor. Upon hearing this, Cruise responded in a lighthearted and jesting manner, telling her he hopes her dad is okay with both his wife and daughter having a crush on him. Cruise's humorous reply has gone viral on social media, earning the actor more points for being friendly and easygoing. The internet is excited, as people can't get enough of his witty retort as he blushes at the comments made by the woman. Since being shared, the post has garnered an impressive 2.8 million views and received 4.7 likes. One user affectionately described Tom as a generational crush, while another user playfully noted that Tom has become a villain for the woman's dad. Grace also attached a long caption to the video, describing how she had the sweetest moment with Tom Cruise at his Mission Impossible 7 premiere.
Cheers and applause coming from a Mission Impossible movie. After all, there are over-the-top action sequences and special effects, but the cheers and applause coming from a screening of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part.
She pointed out how much meeting the star meant to her because she had loved him as an actor and his movies since high school. His undivided attention to listen to her story, him reaching out to squeeze her hand gently, it all made her feel like she was the only person there. She also added that he returned to her to check that she had taken the perfect photo of them after he had already moved on to other fans. That's not all. Another Instagram user commended her for sharing her story before such a legendary figure, expressing admiration for Tom's attentive and classy demeanor. Knowing how busy celebrities always were at events like the one Grace had met Tom, fans were amazed at the actor's choice to give Grace as much attention as she needed. Someone else praised Tom for his listening skills and explained why he is indeed a movie star. Being able to listen wasn't just a good trait in acting, but in a person's day-to-day life, and fans of the actor were glad to know his good qualities weren't just for the camera. A fifth user humorously shared that they would have been speechless if they were in her shoes, forgetting how to speak in front of Tom. But then, who wouldn't be? Another user humorously added, "My man stole both the generations," appreciating Tom's timeless charm. Grace's affection towards the actor was seen as natural due to the fact that almost every woman on the planet has had and still has a crush on Tom, but hearing about her mother's crush fascinated the fans. A 30-year-long crush was all that was needed to solidify Tom's charm and ability to make women swoon over him. Not long after the meeting with Grace, Tom surprised moviegoers at theaters in several locations, greeting fans who showed up to see the latest installment in his popular action franchise, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, and it's, I really do encourage people to see it on a big screen because the sound, the colors, the immersive experience and communal and community experience is there for everyone.
Thanking fans for being there for the screening, Cruise added, as seen in video footage shared by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, that he knows the fans definitely dream of moments like this, and it felt amazing for him to be a part of it. He also told them he hopes they enjoy the film because the main reason it was made was for them, his fans. Tom's interactions with his fans has made the actor well known and deeply loved all over the world, as his fans always keep hope alive that they will one day get to meet their favorite star. The ones that have already been lucky enough to meet him hope to be able to do so again, and this time around, get to maybe have coffee or even a drink with him. Being loved as a movie star and as an individual appears to be a big feat for Tom Cruise, and his ever-loyal fan base can't agree less. Contrary to what is widely believed about fame changing a person, Tom has proven to be the opposite. But how did he get to become such a popularly known and loved superstar with such a strong fan base? Stay tuned, because this next part is sure to keep you glued to your screens. Tom Cruise, the man and his fame. Dating back to the 1980s, Tom Cruise has been one of the most prominent movie stars in all of Hollywood. After developing an interest in acting during high school, he rocketed to fame with his turns in Risky Business and Top Gun, earning himself a place in the big leagues. Cruise has since become an action movie veteran, counting the Mission Impossible franchise, Edge of Tomorrow, and Top Gun Maverick among his many successes. The four-time Oscar nominee has also earned acclaim for his performance in Born on the 4th of July, Jerry Maguire, and Magnolia. Off the silver screen, Cruise is one of the most high-profile members of the Church of Scientology and has been married to fellow actors Nicole Kidman and Katie Holmes. But who was Cruise before all these happened? Let's dive deeper into the life of the movie star. Thomas Cruise Mapother IV, better known as Tom Cruise, was born on July 3, 1962, in Syracuse, New York. The third of four children, Tom was the only son of Mary Lee South and Thomas Cruise Mapother III. Which of these predictions do you think is most accurate? Let us know what you think in the comments section. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Click on the next video displayed on your screen. You will enjoy it.